Hello everyone and welcome. I am Sonica Aron, and today we are having a conversation that very often gets ignored or under the carpet. And today we are going to talk about what inclusion really looks like for invisible disabilities. And last month or our last podcast, we spoke about mental health, mental disabilities, and today we are going to talk about multiple sclerosis. And this episode is about understanding empathy, small actions, small reasonable accommodations that can make a difference, a big difference for people with these invisible disabilities. So, today joining me is someone whose work and life offers powerful perspectives on multiple sclerosis, the entire experience, how it is seen in the organizations, what organizations can do. And allow me to introduce to you Punkaj Gupta. Pankaj, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sonica. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. For everyone, Pankaj is a travel photographer based in Bangalore, certified by the Photographic Society of America. He calls his photographs objects in the rear view mirror. That's very awesome, actually. A reminder that every photograph holds a memory, a moment that stays with us. Pankaj has showcased his work in several group exhibitions and also held a solo exhibition to raise funds for the Multiple Sclerosis of India, supporting people living with MS. With over 150 awards, including Black and White Spider Award, his photographs are permanently displayed in an art gallery in Australia. He also runs a home gallery in Bangalore, where photography and life are often discussed over a warm cup of tea or coffee.
Coffee more primarily because South is more coffee, right? So,
Okay. And once again, Pankaj, thank you so much for joining us. And looking forward to a absolutely raw, candid, real conversation. Really, really excited about this.
yeah. No, thanks, Sonica, for the lovely intro and for having me as well. I would look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Okay, I'm starting with my first question right away. Pankaj, before we dive into leadership strategies, I think we need to set a baseline. Most people, uh, they might have heard the term multiple sclerosis. Firstly, from my experience, I know that many people do not realize or don't know that multiple sclerosis is covered under the RPWD Act. But what does it really mean? In very simple layman language, what does MS mean? What are the common symptoms that people might experience? When is it diagnosed? How is it diagnosed? Could you help us with some of these?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I mean, multiple sclerosis, you know, like you said, was introduced in the RPWD Act as late as 2016. The so that is a good positive sign we've had from the government. So multiple sclerosis basically it is. I'm not by any stretch a medical profession, but like I said, I can only talk about layman language, Sonica. I cannot give you uh, the medical side of things. But so the so our it's an autoimmune condition which is affected in the central nervous system, right? So basically,
Mm.
we have many nerves in the body, which is connected to the central nervous system, which sends signals, right, to various parts of our body, and uh, and every nerve has a just think of a nerve like an electrical wire, right? So electrical wire has the actual wire, the filament inside the wire, and it's covered by a sheath, right? Every which we kind of uh, in case you have to connect, we have to kind of break it and connect it, right? Uh, so the sheath is called myelin. It's called myelin, right? So what happens in this condition is that your own immune system attacks your myelin, thinking that it is bad. It is bad for you, right? So immune system is acting against you, which is why it's called the autoimmune condition. And what happens is that then over time, the wire gets exposed because the sheath is being
The
eaten off by the autoimmune
yeah.
system, and that causes loss of signals. It's patchy signals, etc. And depending on which nerve is affected, then that part of the body gets affected, right?
Understood.
So that's in layman language. That's how it works. And so basically, it is a very quote unquote new disease from that perspective. It's not so there is no known reason why it happens. There is no cure for it. It is only we only take medication to kind of suppress it or address it as much as possible. So you take immunosuppressants to kind of tell the immune system, what, relax. Don't don't be hyperactive. Just relax. Everything is okay. Just relax. So that's what we that's the medication involved in it. And so every person's condition is different from the other. So there is no one size fits all at all, right? So, for example,
Mm.
if person A has MS and person B also has MS, they'll have different symptoms, different effects, different medication, which can only be found out by quite expensive MRIs and and even the advocacy within the doctor population is very low. It's not something which even the doctors are very well aware of how to. It's getting better. It hasn't got a lot better in the last 5, 6 years, but it is still far from how advanced we are in some of the other quote unquote popular conditions like diabetes or whatever, cancer and stuff like that, right? So and because just to give you a data point, worldwide, globally, the known people with MS are about 3 million worldwide, right?
Worldwide.
And in India, India is about 3 lakhs all over India, right? So there are, I mean, I'm not saying that there are only 3 lakh people for sure. It is because of the lack of awareness and lack of intervention, we don't know how many people actually have MS. But recorded wise, we think somewhere in the 3 lakh range for India and about 3 million or 30 lakhs, 30 lakhs for globally. And what research has shown is that it affects women more than men, and the ages of 20 to 40, which is considered the prime age of any human, it affects in that age more than the other ages, right? Because the thought is that, or the research shows that after 40, anyway, your immune system starts to weaken. So
Mm.
therefore, it affects the nerves that much lesser, right? So women are more prone to this. 2/3 are generally women, 1/3 is male, and it affects, I think, over but 85-90% are under the age of 40, which is what we consider prime, which is I guess not the not so good part, because that's the prime age of
Yeah.
of humans, right? So very building careers, building families, etc. So, and from a symptoms perspective, it can, like I said, it can vary, right? Depending on what part of the body or which nerve gets impacted. You could have vision issues, you could have stability issues, you could have cognitive issues, you could have blurred vision, you could have tingling sensations, you could have numbness in various parts of the body. So I mean, it's a very varied uh, symptom, and like I said, each person is very, very extremely unique from that perspective
Mm.
as well. We are all unique, but even from that perspective, we are all very unique uh, from a condition, impact, medication, uh, that perspective. Does that help?
Yes,
Sorry,
it helps a lot, and it is giving me some offshoot questions. First of all, when you say that it is mostly diagnosed between the age group of 20 to 40, right?
right.
How does a person, any person, and this I'm talking from a person who might have MS perspective, realize that they need to go in for these tests, or what are the telltale signs that it could be my autoimmune system which is not letting me you know possibly heal or
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I mean, what I would say is that don't ignore any condition which happens to you, right? So if you are getting something which is not as part of your normal, for example, fatigue. Fatigue is a symptom of MS, right? So I mean, all of us get tired, right, at some point in the
yes.
day. So how can we say that every time I'm tired, oh, I have MS or I have autoimmune? That's not possible, right? So if it is out of the ordinary, it is not something which is a normal kind of tired feeling, or it is a we get numb because when we are standing or sitting in a particular position for a long time, then you tend to get numb in some areas, right? So, but if it happens more frequently, if it happens more things, so what I would recommend is go see a neurologist as soon as possible. Best case scenario would be that more than likely it will not be anything at all, but it is good to get it cleared because the biggest the I guess the biggest positive impact we can have to address MS is early diagnosis. That's why we are missing it, right? Because people think that need take a chalta hai, it's a normal thing. I will ignore it, and that's where we kind of the whole society we uh, kind of falter. So what I would recommend is to promote early diagnosis. Meet your neurologist as soon as possible, and he will of course refer you to somebody else if he doesn't have experience with he or she doesn't have experience with MS. But I guess rely on the medical system we have in India, which is very good and getting better by the day. I think we should rely and utilize them even more than we have been doing. But we tend to ignore the symptoms
I
and
understand.
which we should not.
Yeah. So another offshoot. Here, if I were to summarize, is that if you're having any recurring system, which is not going on its own, which is beyond the normal, go see a neurologist to eliminate.
Correct.
And early diagnosis helps.
Is key. Is key. Is very
It's
key.
key. It's key.
Yeah.
All right. The other thing that you said is that it is between the age group of 20 to 40. Now, till the age of 20, most people have acquired basic education and even graduation, which means most people who are out of these 3 lakhs that you said are employable from an education qualification perspective.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So which means this talent pool of 3 lakhs might right now not be getting tapped.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in the sense, like for example, am a person with MS as well, right? So, and I've been employed throughout. So it is. There are various factors in the society, in the corporate world as well, where um, you know people hesitate to kind of say that no, they have MS. Number one, even if they have diagnosed with MS, they say, what if I say MS, will I be employable? Right? Will the corporates or will the company look at me in a different way? Right?
Mhm.
So and which has been the case maybe 10-15 years back when you going with a condition with a disability, physical disability, etc. People tend to look at you in a different way. But it's got a lot better. Can it get better? For sure, it can get much better, right? We can all
Mhm.
do our bit. The corporates can do their bit
Mhm.
to kind of be more inclusive and be more acceptable to these kind of conditions. And but it has got a lot better. So affecting employability, it depending. For example, Sonica, if I have not been diagnosed early enough, and the condition has worsened, right, right up to where it is affecting me to an extent where I really cannot be employed, even myself from a typical, typical corporate job perspective. Then of course I've done more harm to myself than anybody else. But 99% of the people with MS are very very employable, and they do a fantastic job. Me, for example, I would like to think that. Uh, so yes, so I mean, it is all about the mindset change we need to bring in the society, in the corporate, and the government, etc. I mean, they're all doing their bit, but can we do more? For sure, we can all do much more.
Absolutely. And my next question is that, for talent acquisition experts and for the managers who are hiring managers, so for example, hiring for their own teams,
Right.
let's say we have a candidate who has MS, and uh, uh, we believe and we propagate that if we have a condition we should tell the organization, though it's a personal choice,
Of
because
course.
then the organization can provide reasonable accommodations for us
Correct.
to be
Correct.
completely productive. But
Right.
there are often these biases or these assumptions around energy levels, stamina. You said fatigue, right?
Right.
How should people who are recruiters, first of all, so let's break this up into two parts. One is recruiters and hiring managers. How do they separate the symptom from the condition and the competence of the candidates? That would be part A of the question.
Yeah.
The second would be, uh, as a candidate myself, because this podcast would be viewed both by recruiters and hiring managers and candidates from MS themselves. How
Sure.
does a person with MS project, that, or share or disclose and arrive at a place where they are seen just as competent as anybody else?
Right. Okay. So I'll try to give you my thoughts, Sonika, on that. Right. So I think the biggest thing is advocacy over here, where the hiring managers have to be trained on what are the various autoimmune conditions, MS specifically, what are the symptoms, how can it, how does it affect people, etc. It's very very important for them to understand and really understand what the MS person goes through, right, and how they can contribute to the organization. That's very important. So advocacy is very very is key. And we all need to promote advocacy at all levels, right? Not just corporates, but society, government, at all levels. So when the hiring manager, so what I would recommend is when the hiring manager is looking at candidates, we need to focus on ability and not disability, right? Okay, when if you keep focusing on the fact that okay, when you have MS, can you do it? Can you not do it? But don't focus on that, right? Focus on what the person brings to the table. What are the abilities that person brings to the table, right? Have a very structured assessment process, no different to what you would do for any non-MS person, right? So no different at all. It is not special treatment by any stretch. People with MS do not need special treatment, right? Unless folks, so I mean, the hiring managers can focus on the essential functions and job duties, right? So what are the job which they are looking for, what does that entail, and then talk to the person with MS about, okay, fine, how have you done it in the past, have you faced such a situation in the past, how do you do it, not the fact that, okay, fine, you have MS and you have disability, even though you have that, how do you do it? No, no, no. So that we need to steer away from that conversation. Focus on how they have solved problems in the past, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Focus on their problem solving skills, because they have got situations in the past as well in their life where due to MS they have been able to navigate through across all those problems, right? So that will kind of show us how they show the hiring manager how they have, what are their problem solving skills look like, right? And so basically, all our questioning should be around competency, not about how they manage disability from that perspective, right? So, um, not health related. Let's not ask them about, hey, what did the day look like from because you have MS? How did the day look like, and all that? I think we need to steer away from all that conversations, and of course, they should be aware. The candidate should be aware that they can ask for reasonable accommodation if they want, right? If they want to take more breaks during the interview process, I'm sure the hiring manager should be okay to accommodate that, and so basically create that atmosphere where the candidate can be very open and ask for the accommodation if they want.
Right. So, very often we find that, people who have a disability, they, because of the fear of rejection, fear of, not being considered or being asked questions like this, might hesitate from
For sure.
disclosing, right?
For sure.
So that is there. But let's say a person with MS, right? So, for example, if somebody wants to share that, listen, I need breaks during a day. How should that person position it, where the hiring manager also feels that, yeah, this person needs break, but the work is not going to get impacted. So that positioning for a candidate with MS is very important for themselves.
Correct.
So how do we do that?
No, so candidate has to be upfront, right? So if they need the that accommodation, like you said about breaks during interviews, etc., then they have to ask for it, right? And uh, after asking for it as well, if the for some reason the interviewer or the company refuses, then maybe that's not the right company to work for anyway, right? So if they refuse that reasonable accommodation for whatever reason, right? So it is basically, Sonika, it's about how the recruiter signals empathy and builds the culture of trust within the with the interviewee, with the candidate, right? As to that they can mention any requirement or they have from a accommodation perspective, and how committed the organization and the recruitment team is to inclusivity and flexibility from an interview perspective, and also from an ongoing company culture perspective as well, right? Um, I mean, the interviewer can ask things like, what can we do to ensure that you succeed in what in the job, as opposed to, what can we do for you to succeed because you have a disability. I mean, just like small changes of
Yeah.
language will make a big difference, and allow sharing, right? I mean, I think we need to allow the candidate to share openly about their condition if they want to share. So you can't force that, of course, and it's totally their call. But you need to allow sharing and have open-ended questions so that they feel more comfortable in uh, sharing. And what we can also do is one thing which has worked, which is can possibly work very well, is share anonymous success stories, right? Okay, fine. So not disclosing the name, but anonymously, this person had some issue, and then that's how they were able to kind of merge within the organization, and they were able to succeed. So something like that will make them feel good as well, and they will then start being open up. But from a candidate perspective, Sonika, I think they should just be upfront and open. I mean, it's nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of at all by any stretch of imagination. So the candidate should be ultra open and almost quote unquote demand the flexibility and the accommodation if they need it.
Yes, I completely agree. And I believe that people like us who are, coordinating with both candidates, people from Marching Sheep who are coordinating both with candidates and um, with the client, with the hiring teams, I think we can play a role here. I really like your idea of sharing anonymous success stories, and you are also associated with the Multiple Sclerosis Association of India. And maybe that's a great segue where, we can get some of these success stories, not reveal names, and, just put them out there for the
Sure.
world to see.
Sure.
I just got this idea right now, so I said before I forget, I'll just table. We'll see how it works out,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for sharing this. That if we can
Yeah.
do this, I think it will really help a lot of people and hiring managers.
Right.
Right. So, moving on to the next question, and I think a part of it we already covered that many candidates are terrified to disclose that they have MS during the interview process for fear of rejection. We spoke about that what can a recruiter do, to say that I have this condition and here is how I manage it. But more importantly, how do we differentiate between the fact that multiple sclerosis is a medical condition? When the nerve gets exposed and what disability it leads to is a different conversation. How do we make this the foundation of this conversation where even the candidates don't feel fear and even the recruiters understand it's a medical condition and a medical condition can happen to anyone.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's again, I just go back to advocacy, right, Sonika? It's about how we make the society at large understand more about MS and other conditions, right? So it is no different to what, let's say, a person with diabetes would take. They would take medication all the time, but and so would people with MS as well to suppress the immune condition. So I think the single answer, Sonika, I would say is it's only about advocacy. Advocacy at all levels, be it right from the government to the society, the corporates, and corporates can make play a very big role in this, right? Because the more corporates, and because India is now going through an explosive growth scenario, right? So we can really play a big difference in uh, promoting or advocating what is MS, how can it, affect, not affect, what impact it can have or can't have to the organizations, and how it is almost beneficial for the corporates to kind of focus on disability at large, but also specifically MS, right? And so I think advocacy would be I can't think of anything else but advocacy,
Yeah.
and to build an environment which is more inclusive. I mean, that's the only way we'll do it. I mean, it's if, and and Sonica, everybody wants to do it. I mean, nobody. So like I mean, as per me, the default setting of every human is nice, is good.
Mm.
That's a default setting of
I
everybody, right?
agree.
I
Mm.
think, I mean, different situations make the setting changes at some point, but everybody wants to do it. Nobody will say no. मुझे नहीं करना है. I don't want to do it. Nobody will say that, right? So it's all about making them understand as to how they can do it. I think that's what where we can kind of play a role.
So awareness is key. That will come with advocacy, conversations like this. We amplify success stories. Basically, we make everybody aware as much as possible, and that is
Correct.
what is something which is in our circle of control. Jitna kar sakte hain, let's do it.
Correct.
So excellent. Now, let's move beyond hiring, Pankaj, and let's say a company has hired talent who has MS. So, for HR, for the operations team, for the hiring team, what would successful onboarding look like, specifically in the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, structured to integrate them successfully? A, without the candidate burning out. B, culturally, making them feel included, a sense of belonging. So, any thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, it would be not really too different from how we would treat a non-disabled candidate or non-MS person, right? I think, and companies now do it very well, where they want to kind of make the person feel welcome and less stressed, and anybody for that matter, right? So I mean, what thoughts I'll give you now is, I would say, standard across the board, not only for people with MS. I would say, like, stuff like what companies are doing now, where they do all the paperwork in advance of the person joining, and automate as much as possible, so that it becomes an easier onboarding process before the person is before day one of the person joining. You have the systems and tools and the access all ready, which is generally what companies do for anybody for that matter. uh, Send a simple kind of welcome email to that person, making feel warm and welcome, and also let the team know as well that this person has joined for this role, and have a social event to kind of welcome that person. Don't avoid as much as possible information overload in the beginning, where you kind of throw 100 processes at him. Why let you have a week to kind of complete this, and let's not do that. And one thing which has worked, which is can work and has worked extremely well, is you assign a kind of a buddy or a mentor to that person, who that person can kind of lean on, be his best friend in the organization. That's a very good tactic. And like I said, all this is not just for people with MS, but for anybody for that matter. I think that would be a good way of making the person feel more comfortable and more welcome. Um, of course, we will be doing job specific training and setting clear expectations and goals, etc., which is the same for people with MS, or a normal, or a nobody with MS. I think the same thing goes there as well. Like I said, social team events to make the atmosphere even more conducive, more inclusive. Uh, you know, and one thing which I feel, Sonica, a lot of companies miss. They're trying to do it now, but they miss as how that role connects to the ultimate vision of the company, right? Actually, you may be doing a simple data entry for that, just for as a case in point, as an example. But how does your role affect or impact the ultimate vision? And that kind of almost empowers the person to kind of make a person feel good about how what that जो भी मैं कर रहा हूँ has an ultimate impact on the company. So that connect is very important for that person to know whether it's with person with MS or even otherwise. And like we spoke earlier, make sure the person knows that they can ask for the reasonable accommodation and flexibility, whichever possible by the company. And one more thing which has worked very well, and this is maybe a little bit more applicable for people with MS, is that if we created like a central site, like a SharePoint, we use SharePoint, or a central site where all the training material and the everything can be stored there, so that they can self-pace themselves based on what works best for them. They can access that at their own time, at their own pace, right? So I think these are some of the things I think which can make the life of uh, the corporate life of a person with MS and even otherwise even more good, I guess.
Mm. When you were speaking, Pankaj, one thing which kept hitting me is the concept of universal design. When you say that, that something has really worked very well for people with MS is a central site like a SharePoint where you have all the training material and people can pace themselves out. Is it something which is only for MS? Because people do learn differently, irrespective of whether they have MS or not. Some people have visual learning, some people have audio learning needs, some people have kinesthetic learning needs. And from that perspective, this will work for anyone, whether somebody
For
is from,
absolutely, absolutely. But I mean,
right?
all disabilities, and even like I said, the non-disability person as well, right? Even for that matter, all of us would like to pace ourselves. We know the ultimate goal or the ultimate objective, and we can pace ourselves to get there, right? So I think you're right. I totally agree with you that all these what we spoke about in the last 5 minutes, Sonica, can be and should be in my mind used for anybody, for and everybody. It
Yeah.
is not just for MS or otherwise.
Yeah. Just one question, because see, I might be a candidate with MS and you've hired me. Now, there is a larger team. Uh, you, as my manager, cannot disclose it to the larger team without my consent. How do we create an environment in the team where the team accepts me with, the fact that I'm taking a break every 90 minutes, I'm taking a 10-minute break, or I'm going maybe to the medical room or the restroom to put my feet up for 10-15 minutes. Now, without the team getting inquisitive, without the team getting judgmental, how do we create this sensitivity in the team? So now I'm going beyond the hiring manager,
Yeah,
because end of the day I'll be working with the rest of the team, and how
of
they
course.
perceive me makes a lot of difference as well.
Of course, of course. It all comes down to the culture which we have building in the company, right? If we are building a very exclusive kind of culture, then it becomes even more difficult. But if we are able to promote a culture where everybody in the team, including the new person who's joined, is well aware that they are in a safe environment, right? Whether the environment is very safe to be able to speak your mind, to talk about your conditions and what accommodation needs you have, etc. It should not be the manager going and telling the rest of the team, what, this person has MS, so he will be taking a break every 10 minutes. That's not should not be done. It should come from the person with MS who has joined the organization, and once he kind of observes that it's a safe environment for me to speak up, that person comes in, when during the team meetings or during the social events, he speaks up and talks about it, right? So if the culture of the organization is not doesn't promote that, it's very difficult to have it in separate specific teams, right? It becomes even more difficult. So I think this needs to be attacked at a corporate level, at a company level, where we create an environment and the culture is very inclusive and supports these kind of discussions, right? And openness. It can't. I would say it's very difficult to do it at a individual team level. I mean,
Yeah.
we can do it to an extent, but it it has to be attacked at a company level.
So, tactically speaking, if we were to train all people managers or sensitize all people managers on how to handle teams who might have people with MS, what kind of, how do you normalize these conversations? How do you normalize these reasonable accommodations? Do you think that will help? Very tactically speaking.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, the company policy should support reasonable accommodation. For example, I mean the typical ones, right? I mean that flexible work schedule, having remote working, which is becoming even more popular after COVID, and it's
Yeah.
kind of I think difficult to come back to the earlier life now. But anyway, that's a different that's a different question altogether. But yeah, so I mean, if the company can support, can provide flexibility from that perspective, and like we spoke before the podcast started, Sonica, about making the environment more accessible. Be it
Yes.
elevators, be it something as small as elevators, etc. Making it more accessible, making the person less affected by quote unquote normal environment, right? So having the support tools in place uh, to manage their cognitive ability, if that's the case, uh, which which kind of enables the person to manage the energy and the focus for when they're at their best, right? Because MS can also have varied kind of I guess impacts on energy levels and focus as well. So if you kind of give that flexibility, they know when they're at their best and they can do the most important tasks at that point, right? For example, right? So that kind of um, levels the playing field as well, so that I know when I'm at my best, I will do what is most important when I'm at my best, right? So yeah, kind of avoids or takes away the physical limitations and makes each person give their best.
Right. So I heard you say that, a company policy should, support for example, work timings. So flexibility, remote working, hybrid working. So that is the most basic. And I agree that post-COVID, these have become more popular, though some companies have tried to go back to come to office 9 to 6 kind of this thing, but still. Second is make the environment more accessible physically, even in terms of the services people access, whether it is elevators, whether it is the menu in the cafeteria, and so on. Then you spoke about cognitive support tools, and I'll get into more of that. Most importantly, help them prioritize so that they can manage their energy and focus. And I really like this because this is like telling me that, okay, I have these 10 tasks in a day. What is it that I attack when? What is it that I close when? And that makes me most productive. And if that kind of a transparent conversation I can have with my manager and my team, I think it's a beautiful space to be in.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so focus on the outcomes, right? What I'm saying,
Yes.
not the process. So I think a lot of times we become slave to the process, where we have been told, or we tell our team to do step one, step two, step three, and we kind of lose the essence of the outcomes. I think if you focus more on the outcome rather than um, the process. I mean, sometimes process is required because you have regulatory reasons, and financial companies kind of follow process adherence and compliance even more. I understand that, but I think we should, if we can shift more towards focusing on the outcome. TK, we talk to the team. This has to be achieved by this day. How we do it is something which we can discuss and we can tweak. But the ultimate objective is to reach point A by X, right? So if that can be more popular than saying, what are we today do this, tomorrow do this, tomorrow day after tomorrow do this, right? It's not. It's that's a like a mind shift change as to how we approach targets and goals and stuff like that.
Yeah. 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 Okay, so we've covered a part of the next question that I had to ask, which was more about reasonable accommodations. So you did mention a few, but if I were to ask you that if you could list three specific accommodations that could allow a person with MS to perform at CXO level, what would these actually be? And would these, and this is part B of the question, sometimes these performance enablers, or I mean, if we look at reasonable accommodations as performance enablers, can they be misconstrued as favors or favoritism?
Oh, definitely, definitely, right? So, uh, you know, and that's something which we should definitely avoid, where we make the person feel that we are doing a favor to them by doing whatever accommodation we are doing, right? It is going to be almost detrimental to this. We lose the point. We lose the plot. We should not make them feel that they are special from that perspective, and that's why they're getting this accommodation, or it should be standard across the board, right? So I think to your first part of the question, Sonika, I think stuff like we spoke about, if the company can provide flexibility from a timing perspective, uh, you know, having a more accessible environment, that is a reasonable accommodation for us. We can possibly potentially have some tools which can support the person, so that the admin activity burden is kind of is removed, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and like we spoke earlier about how we can kind of level the playing field, where we remove the physical challenges and just focus on what the person can do, right? Even at a
Yeah.
CXO level, they can do their best, and they can do their best when they are at their best, right? So they can, and of course, the more inclusive environment we have by providing these accommodations, then we also retain the top talent as well, right? So if the CXO is can definitely, or not can, will definitely be a positive impact to the organization, he will then think twice, thrice before he wants to switch, because he's getting such a good environment here.
Absolutely. I completely endorse it. When people find a place they can call home, where they
Right.
find all the reasonable accommodation, support, and inclusive culture, why would they want to leave?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So
Correct. I
awesome.
agree with you totally. Yeah.
Great point. One thing which was coming to my mind is that MS could be unpredictable. So
Yeah.
there are times when there are flare-ups. In fact, we had the same conversation in our previous podcast wherein we said that, when people have, for example, bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, then there are episodes, right? So how do we structure roles? How does an organization structure roles, ways of working, so that these flare-ups, these episodes in MS do not impact outcomes?
Yeah. So again, I mean, Monica, again, it's like similar to what I would say company should do for everybody and anybody anyway, right? Stuff like, cross training, where we have uh, you know more than one person can do the same job when required.
Yeah.
We have shared ownership, where we have a team which is kind of tasked to do a job, and it's not a single person from that perspective. Like we spoke earlier about, focus on the outcome and not. Sometimes we have kitne ghante lage, how many hours have you
Hmm.
worked, right? So I think we kind of move away from that as to what have you achieved. That it's a shift in conversation, shift in approach. That will also help a lot, where we focus on outcomes and not on the hours or the effort which has gone into it. Um, like typically for every project or every initiative, there's a certain amount of buffer which is built wherever possible, right? So we should build that buffer as well, that which will kind of help with those episodes of flare-ups, like you mentioned, so that will kind of cover that. Open, constant dialogue with the person with MS, that, find, hey, how are you feeling? How's it going? Is everything okay? Can I do anything for you? Kind of a thing will also give us an indication of whether we need to deploy any of those, cross training things we did earlier, or we need to invoke some of the BCP, the business continuity plans, etc. Right? So, and of course, we should always offer that wherever possible. Uh,
Mm.
the the reasonable accommodations, right? Work from home, specific number of hours, different shift timings, etc. If it's possible. And one thing which I think, I mean, some companies do it well, some companies don't do it as well as they should, is that celebrate small wins, right? I think once we, for example, we only kind of celebrate when the whole project is over or the whole initiative is complete. How about we also celebrate stages of the process? Okay, when, hey, great job last week. We finished step one of the of where we want to achieve, right? So it's all due to person A, person B, person C. So we kind of celebrate small wins that makes them feel much better, and uh, so they know that when they were doing at their best times, when they were not having the flare ups, what they did is very much appreciated, and automatically, subconsciously, those flare ups reduce because they know that, oh, I'm getting so much of positivity when I'm at my best. When I don't have a flare up, and automatically the flare ups kind of tend to reduce, right? So yeah, I think constant dialogue and small tricks and tricks about cross training, etc., would help to reduce the impact of these flare ups.
Yeah. One thing I've heard a lot from MS candidates, people who belong to the society, Multiple Sclerosis Society Association of India,
Yeah.
is that the more a person with MS is busy, occupied, working, lesser are the flare-ups.
That's the case with any one of us, right? That's like
Yeah.
idle mind, devil's workshop kind of thing. So yeah, no, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think as long as we are, all of us are kind of busy and don't let our mind wander too much into unnecessary areas, and it's better. So definitely that's applicable for people with MS as well. As to how we can keep them as busy as possible, keep ourselves as busy as possible, mentally, physically, spiritually, in all three facets, right? So I think that's a very good point you make. That the busier we all are, including people with MS, the less flare-ups we have because then our mind is wandering that much lesser.
Mm, mm. How does a young person, let's say in their mid 20s or mid 30s, deal with this diagnosis? Any insight on that? I mean, um, I'm just thinking, and this just struck me right now, before I go on to the next question. But this was something which just struck me that, mid 20s, 30s, everything going well, and then suddenly I'm told that this is I have this autoimmune that I have to live with, and I have like my whole life in front of me.
No,
How does a person? Hmm.
it can have a tremendous mental impact to the person, right? Because that person is young, is raring to start his or her life, to make a difference in the world, and they have dreams and they have ambitions, and suddenly you're told that you have this condition, and which is unknown, which is there's no cure for it, there's no known reason as to why it happened. So everything is a mystery. At that point, you're confused. You don't know what is happening, and then you start thinking about why me, right? The whole
Mm,
that this story I like to say a lot when I can, I'll say it again. Is that this tennis star of the 1970s 80s called Arthur Ashe. I think he was the first Afro American to have won the Wimbledon, if my facts are right. And he was diagnosed with AIDS. I think he got some wrong blood transfusion doing one of his normal procedures, and he of course passed away 10, 15 years after that, right? So he was kind of asked as to, have you ever thought about why me, right? I said, why has God or the Lord above or the force above done this to you, right? So I think he had a very good answer to it. So he says that every year 50 million children start playing tennis in the US, right?
mm,
Out of which 5 million learn how to actually play the game. uh, 500,000 learn professional tennis, 50,000 reach the circuit, 5,000 people reach the Grand Slams, 50 reach the Wimbledon, uh, four reach the semifinals, two reach the finals, one person wins, right? So, and when I was lifting the cup, I never asked the force above why me. So at this point, also I cannot ask, right? So it is basically it's all about how we can. There are a lot of positives to look around in all of our lives. Focus on the positives and not focus on the negatives. Have gratitude as to what you have. This, the normal stuff which we all talk about nowadays, even more than before. Is it
Mm.
focus on the positive what we have, the life ahead of you. For every MS person at whatever stage of the life they have contracted the condition, is that this is a very very controllable condition with it's gaining a lot of advocacy as well in the world, and the impact it can have is as much as you want it to have, right? So if you wanted
Right.
to, if you want to let it affect you to the maximum, it will. But if you don't want to let it
Mm.
affect you, it would not, right? So I think just take it as a lots more to be grateful for than something like just a silly thing like MS.
Mm. Mm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Pankaj, that gets me to the next question that, you mentioned that you're a person living with MS, but you lead
Yeah.
a performance life. I mean, you have so many awards and accolades, and you are living a life with a job and fulfilling your passion. So, how has MS, or how have you integrated MS in your life, in your, in your dreams, in how you're pursuing what you're doing?
So I think, Sonika, I mean, I got MS at the age of 40, just
Mm-hmm.
before 40. I mean, so I will said that it generally happens between 20 and 40. So at the end point, it got me, which is fine. But I think my life has changed tremendously after after my diagnosis. I mean, personally, I can say that it is like a wake up call, right? So in fact, I even kind of joke with my family that if and when I write a book, I'm going to say write a book titled "Thank You MS." Right. So I'm
Mm.
so grateful to the fact that I got MS, because before that I was not. I mean, only after 40, like I said, wake up call, and I was doing stuff like I'd done photography, was became part of the Mensa group. I do some theater as well. I'm part of a theater group. I do some running as well. Doing half marathons and doing the full marathon hopefully next year. So I mean, and I only thought about all this after I got MS, right? So because it's like almost like I said, a wake up call and a self reflection on what is important in life and what I need to be grateful for. And did I go through the whole why me syndrome? Of course I did, right? I had my own share of depressions and anxieties and stuff like that, but I think with the support system around me was very strong, and I was able to very easily and beautifully come out of it. And I think, yeah, like you said, I think I'm doing very well now and at my best. And I'm sure anybody and everybody can also be their best and do their best and not have something as silly as MS limit you in any way.
Yeah. I'm going to deep dive a little bit on this, right? You said your support system was very strong. Was this your personal family support system, or was the support system at work also very strong?
Yeah, I mean, a family, of course, is the first point of call, right? Because
Uh,
that's the people who get, I guess, also get um, uh, like you said, collateral damage. That's the uh, people who also kind of get impacted, your family and friends, right? So support system around that is very important, because you also hear not so good stories about after I got diagnosed and my spouse left me, for example, right? I mean,
yeah.
you hear stories like that, right? My employer has let me go of my job because I have MS, right? So there are a lot of stories which, of course, as part of the society which we run, Sonica, we kind of address that and talk to the employers as required and talk to the spouse as required and kind of make that work. But so the support system around you, personally, I think would be more impactful, number one. And of course, I mean, the two biggest parts of person's life are generally what your personal your family and friends, and then your corporate, your work life. And I mean, I think that covers 99% or possibly even
Mm.
more of our life anyway, right? So, uh, in for me, for example, I had a very strong personal support system, extremely strong, family and friends, and also from a work perspective, I never I had a lot of my family members, extended family telling me, you know what, are you going to tell your company that you have MS? Right? I said, yeah. I mean, I I don't think see that it being a problem. He said, no, no, are you sure? What they look at you, what they look at you differently, and whether would it affect your, your at that point my promotions and stuff like that. I said, no, I don't think so. If it's going to affect, then maybe it's not the right company for me to work for anyway, right? So, no, but so I was lucky enough that I had a very strong support system both at my personal level and at corporate level as well. So it can make a huge difference to anybody to kind of tackle that disease and tackle the condition. And I see no reason why any of us should feel any lesser because if we have a condition like MS. Like I said, it's a very silly thing to be impacted mentally about.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, Pankaj, because sometimes people feel it's an observation, it's an experience when we speak to sometimes people about hiring people with disabilities. I have heard a statement being made, we are already doing them a favor,
Right,
or it's a part of CSR.
right,
What I like to tell many people is that listen, most of the 90% of disabilities are acquired between the working age of 18 to 65. 90% people are not born with a disability, with MS being one of them, right?
correct, correct,
So whether it is MS, whether it is mental disabilities, acid attack survivors, there's so many of them which are acquired much later in life. Even for example, amputation. I know so many people who were, studying, doing well, and then were in an accident or something happened. Now, so it's not just about hiring people with disabilities, like somebody who could be within our organization, working right now, fully productive, maybe a top talent, might tomorrow get diagnosed with something which can lead to a disability,
definitely,
right?
definitely, definitely.
So, how do we make people realize, how do we bust this myth that hiring a person with disability is an act of charity? Because sometimes it also translates into lower salary ranges.
Correct.
So, sometimes when we are given mandates, the salary range is lower than what they would pay you know so how do we bust this myth? It's not like, I have somebody in my team who is suddenly diagnosed with, let's say, an MS or a bipolar disorder or a schizophrenia, and I'll tell them from now on your salary will be 60% of what you were having.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very, very strange and very funny and
Yeah.
almost illogical, right? So, but uh, yeah, but I mean, see, but the companies need to understand, and I'm sure that a lot of companies do, that by promoting, disability or disabled candidates, as we call them, persons with disability, is that you are having access, the company is having access to a very large, expanded, untapped talent pool, right? Which,
Mm.
to the points you mentioned earlier, Sonica, I mean, people hesitate to kind of tap into that pool, right? So that's untapped, right? And that is uh, like waiting to be tapped from that perspective, right? So I think you have access to that untapped talent pool, so we should do that. Generally, research has shown that and there is research done in the US which shown that the this pool of candidates have reduced attrition, lower absenteeism, the diverse workforce which you have ultimately after you hire PWDs, person with disabilities, can also lead to access to new markets as well from a company perspective because your thinking changes that much, and so you can also have access to markets which you haven't thought of earlier. You can also tap them. And I think one of the biggest things which I feel is that the level of innovation in the team. No, because a lot of people, a lot of companies, the innovation is the new is a new buzzword these days, right? I mean,
Yeah.
be it through Gen AI or whatever it is, but innovation is something which all companies are looking for or striving for. And we must keep in mind that all the people with MS have gone through innovation in their personal life, right? Because they have come across situations which is not normal, and they have had to be quote unquote innovative to get around to work around that, right? So they have the innovative mindset. The fact that they have come so far means and shows that they are innovative. So why can't the companies tap their innovative mindset from a work perspective as well? Because we know that they are figuring it out all the time, right? Because of their conditions. So why can't they figure things out even or help you figure things out even at work as well, right? It it boosts company morale. I mean, when the other employees in the organization see this we promoting an inclusive and diverse work culture and atmosphere, it boosts their morale as well. It does wonders to the brand reputation from that perspective, right? And it also helps with the legal compliance, right? Because we know that from a government act perspective, it is very much required now. How is it enforced? It is at is something for a separate discussion, but
Yeah.
it is required from a legal perspective as well. So you're also compliant from. So that's a must have anyway. So I think these are some of the things where I think it is beneficial for the companies to kind of focus more on this diverse and inclusive work culture.
Absolutely. And I always like to say that, if we are creating an inclusive work culture, infrastructure, cultural inclusion for people with disabilities, service inclusion for people with disabilities, I'm in a way doing a favor to myself, because I will get old. I will need ramps. I will need those cognitive tools on my in my laptop and software. So why even differentiate? That is sometimes I wonder if it is getting through to people,
Right,
uh, right?
right.
Um,
We all getting older, right? Yeah, no, you're right. So we'll all need this quote unquote reasonable accommodation at some point ourselves, right? So just to live
yeah.
life. Yeah, yeah.
And definitely would not like to be excluded because or told कि अब now you cannot work anymore, right? So
No, but I think, I mean, all is not dark and gloom, right? I think the whole uh, culture and the DNA of all organizations are moving towards that, that utopian world where we all are inclusive and we all are
hmm,
collaborative and stuff like that. So I think by time you and I get old, I think we'll be fine, Sonika. I think the world will be a better place anyway.
hmm, absolutely. So, quick one. See, MS is an invisible disability, and
Yeah.
invisible disabilities, anyways, are very difficult for people to understand. I've heard a lot of stories where people with invisible disabilities have been assumed to be not committed, lazy, making an excuse. So, if I were to, or anyone had to explain to a manager who has never heard, or who's not not comfortable or not aware about invisible disabilities, how would you explain in a 30-second and like an elevator pitch, how would you do that for MS?
Yeah. So what we could say, I'm not sure about 30 seconds, but I'll take a shot. The invisible disability like MS, which is what you mentioned, looks very normal from the outside, but it's something which the person is dealing with inside with things. So basically, MS, I would say that MS is a chronic kind of illness that, like we discussed earlier, right? But it affects the brain and the spinal cord. It's
Hmm.
considered invisible because symptoms aren't always obvious, and someone with MS might experience things like overwhelming fatigue or difficulty with focus and memory, which is called brain fog, numbness, balancing problems. They would not balance, and these symptoms change from day to day. It's not a constant. It's not that every time every day they'll be doing the same thing. It's something they face periodically, and it very random, right? It's not something which is consistent at all. And while they might look normal from the outside, just keep in mind that they would need some reasonable accommodations from time to time, and it is almost your duty to ensure that that accommodation is provided, and so that the person can manage the energy, perform their best, and make contribute to the organization even more.
Hmm.
Take the shot.
Excellent. So, thank you so much. I think we've covered all key points. We've covered about managerial conversations. We've talked about how a person should disclose, a person can ask for reasonable accommodations, what are reasonable accommodations, certain myths around it, the business relevance. So, I feel it has been a very, very meaningful and very informative conversation, Pankaj, and
Great.
thank you
Thank you.
so much
Thank
for
you.
making time for this.